Malicious compliance can be the best. I'm your host, Height. Let's see who's been blessed. Our first one is from Casserole 422. This was many years ago, so I apologize if some of the details are incorrect. 'Twas the year of our Lord 2006. My big sister had just started driving on her own. My parents did as most parents did at the time. They bought her the biggest pile of shit car that they could find. Relatively reliable, but it was a mid-80s gold Geo Metro. It was a beater, rusty, dented, and dinged. Very ugly, and importantly for this story, one of the mirrors was duct taped on. One afternoon in the fading light, she was driving to our local Pizza Hut to pick up her paycheck. On that fateful day, as the sun was going down, someone in a big black Suburban type of vehicle backed into her front driver's side pretty hard. So hard, in fact, that the car was completely totaled. But luckily, my sister was fine. Both parties had insurance. They called the police to take an official report, and my parents started to hunt for a new car. Some time passes, and they get a letter from the Suburban's insurance agency asking for our insurance to cover the cost of the damage done to the Suburban. The Suburban driver was alleging that my sister had been speeding through the parking lot and was therefore at fault. This was news to them. They grilled my sister, who swore up, down, and sideways that she was not speeding, and actually that she was going much slower than normal because the sun was setting and it was hitting her windshield in such a way that made visibility difficult. After some digging, they found in the police report the sheriff's deputy had noted that the mirror that was duct taped on fell straight down. So not only had my sister not been speeding, but she was very nearly or completely stopped at the time of the accident. My parents' insurance sent a letter back stating that my sister had not been at fault for this accident, and they were willing to accept the total they had paid for the car several months earlier, the paltry sum of $350. The lady who hit my sister responded back that she would not be paying for anything, as she was very confident that she was not at fault, and told my parents that they would have to take her to small claims court. My parents responded, bet, and did just that. In order to get all of the paperwork in line for small claims court, they had to take this shitty little Geo Metro to an auto body shop and get an estimation for how much it would cost to replace the panels that this lady had totaled. Well, a car that old was difficult to find parts for, and so they were unable to find anything to replace the panels and the door. So they gave her a quote for how much it would be to repair those panels, as well as replace the tire and suspension bits that she messed up by backing into it. About $4,000. Just before court, they did attempt to go to mediation with her to attempt to get her to just pay the $350 that they had initially bought the car for. Unfortunately, or fortunately, she was still convinced that she was not at fault. Long story short, my parents were awarded the full $4,000, as it was determined that the lady did not check behind her thoroughly enough before backing out of the parking spot. And that's how my parents made $3,000 on a $300 car. I feel like if you're gonna tell people that they should take you to court to try to get the money because you aren't gonna pay for the insurance claim or whatever, you're not gonna have your insurance cover it, you better be damn sure that you're not at fault. That clearly wasn't the case with the Suburban lady, and I think she learned that lesson. This next one is by Ambitious Exam 3858. I'm a custodian for an office building. I clean bathrooms, take out trash, vacuum, etc. I clean in the morning before the office opens. When collecting trash, I'd occasionally find some loose papers under or behind desks, beside the trash can, or otherwise on the floor. Since I'm not sure if these papers are trash that missed the can or important documents that fell on the floor by accident, I pick them up and put them on the corner of the nearest desk for the workers to either file them away or toss them. Better safe than sorry. However, the manager did not like this habit. She came in early one morning, expressing disgust that trash was being placed on people's desks. Obviously, I've never put actual trash like food wrappers or crumbled papers on desks. I explained my reasoning for my habit and expressed that I didn't want to risk tossing something important. My manager told me that everything on the floor is trash and the workers aren't such immature slobs to drop important documents on the floor. I agreed and said I'd never do it again. Flash forward several weeks. My manager came in early again and expressed concerns because a filing cabinet had tipped over that day, and despite picking up the papers, they were still missing a few important documents. She asked if I'd seen them. I reminded her that since everything on the floor is trash, the documents were probably thrown away. She was irate, saying, "But this is an exception since a filing cabinet fell over." I asked her how I was supposed to know that when I'm not there during the day, and was otherwise not informed to look out for these documents. That's when the situation dawned in this woman's eyes, that she was at fault. She stumbled through some excuses before demanding I go to the dumpster and find the papers. I told her that the office was opening in 15 minutes, and I still had work to do. She stormed off and said she'd start looking in the dumpster. While I cleaned, I knew I'd face her again before leaving. My car is parked by the dumpster, so I thought of what to say to her as the final nail in the coffin. Sure enough, when I finished my work and walked out, the manager and a few other workers who'd arrived were rooting through the dumpster. When the manager spotted me, she demanded I come help. I delivered my prepared line. "Ma'am, my job description is to take out trash. Your job description is to ensure the safety and confidentiality of your client's files." I walked away to, in my head, a cartoonesque villain's scream of outraged failure from my manager. A few hours later, I got a text saying that there will now be a special inbox shelf for me to place any papers found on the floor for the workers to go through. Leave it to this manager to not even care about the documents until the documents disappear, when OP was simply doing what ended up happening in the end anyway, picking up the documents unsure if they were important or not and putting them somewhere for people to actually go through and verify. I wonder if they ever found the documents in the dumpster. And our final one is from BlueBoy714. Before I retired, I was a manager and programmer in a department located in the US. I would program, manage, assign projects, create timelines, answer questions that my staff had, etc. The company I worked for decided to consolidate the US and UK programming departments, and the new boss decided to have only managers in the UK oversee the programmers in the US. This meant that I was only supposed to keep programming. I had the most experience among all the US and UK programmers, and no longer needed to do the management side of things. But I still got the same pay I used to. Due to a 6-hour time difference between the US and UK, that meant there were only 2 or 3 hours each day that we overlapped. This left the rest of the day for my old staff to either wait until the next day to ask their new boss, or come to me and I could answer immediately. The latter made more sense so they could keep working. But eventually, the UK managers complained to the US-UK boss that the US staff wasn't coming to them for help and they were still coming to me, which the UK managers were having a conniption about. My boss told me to stop helping my old staff when they asked me questions and that they needed to ask their new managers. So it was time for malicious compliance. I went back to only programming, and when my old staff came and asked me questions, usually in the afternoons US time since the UK was done for the day, I told them I was told to no longer help them and they should ask their new UK manager the next day, or send their UK boss an email with their question. I told them it was time for malicious compliance since the US programmers knew exactly what would happen. So my old team started deluging their UK bosses with questions, problems, etc., and then had to wait until the next day or two to get an answer. Within 2 weeks, the US team was missing deadlines, etc., and the UK managers had to answer for why their team was missing deadlines. After a couple more weeks, my boss and the UK managers came to the realization that due to the 6-hour time difference, there should be a manager in the US, which is exactly what I told them weeks ago. Finally, my boss asked me if I would like to be a manager again, and I told her I was happy just programming and didn't need the other work. They ended up giving me a raise in order to get me to go back to managing the US programmers. If you're going to have a company that operates in multiple countries, then you should be well aware of the time difference and delays that time difference can have on the productivity of said company. At least OP's malicious compliance pretty much gave them a raise to do what they were doing anyway. Alright, that's enough stories for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Malicious Compliance. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, Subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.